It took exactly 4 to 7 seconds for the illusion to die. 4 to 7 seconds between control and collapse. Between an empire built on federal dollars and the silence that follows when the truth finally enters the room. The hearing began at 9:02 a.m. Room 2141 of the Rayburn House office building. The air was dry, sterile, and overcooled. Fluorescent light pooled over mahogany panels polished to a false perfection. Behind the dais, nameplates glimmered under studio lamps. Crockett, Norton, Stile, Jordan. Cameras hummed softly, red lights blinking. Live feed to C-SPAN, to the internet, to a nation quietly losing faith in its own transparency. At the center table sat Rajiv Patel, CEO of Cintratech Systems, a federal contractor entrusted with $1 billion artificial intelligence analytics platform, known internally as Aegis View. Before him, a glass of water remained untouched. The man's cufflinks bore the company's emblem, a silver spiral, modest but deliberate. His posture was immaculate, almost rehearsed. Representative Jasmine Crockett entered precisely on time, carrying a thin binder wrapped in blue tape, the edges worn from late-night annotation. Her walk was steady, unhurried, and when she sat, the hum in the room softened to attentive quiet. She didn't glance at Patel immediately. Instead, she adjusted her microphone, clicked her pen once, and began reading silently from the binder as the chairman offered formal opening remarks about oversight, accountability, and the responsible integration of artificial intelligence into national defense data systems. Across the room, journalists whispered under their breath, screens glowing with notes and tweets drafted but unsent. The stakes were understood. This was not a hearing about numbers. It was about truth disguised as technology. Patel raised his right hand for the oath, his voice calm and modulated. "I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth." The clerk recorded it. His legal counsel, seated one chair behind, exhaled softly through his nose, as if rehearsed relief could substitute for real confidence. Crockett finally looked up. Her tone was even, her diction clipped but not hostile. "Mr. Patel," she began, "your company currently holds 3 active contracts with the Department of Homeland Security under the Federal Procurement Integrity Act, correct?" Patel nodded. "Yes, Representative. 3, all within the legal compliance framework." She turned a page. "And as part of that compliance, you are required under 41 U.S.C. Section 2101 to disclose any data sharing arrangements with external vendors, particularly when those vendors have foreign ownership ties. Have you disclosed all such partnerships?" Patel hesitated a fraction too long. "To my knowledge, yes." The pause was imperceptible to the untrained ear, but cameras catch hesitation like confession. A slow blink, a shallow breath, a glance toward counsel. Crockett didn't react. She leaned forward slightly, her pen resting motionless on the table. "We'll return to that," she said calmly. "Let's talk about Aegis View's pilot program in fiscal year 2023. According to the Office of the Inspector General, your platform processed data streams from approximately 62 federal agencies. Is that correct?" Patel smiled faintly. "That's an overestimate, Representative. It was 4 to 9. 4 to 9, she repeated, including the Federal Communications Commission. Patel adjusted his tie, only in a limited testing capacity. The chairman glanced over his reading glasses but said nothing. The clock above the hearing room ticked softly, a mechanical heartbeat beneath the weight of expectation. Through the glass partition at the back, a reporter mouthed silently to her cameraman, his sweating already. The hearing continued for another 20 minutes. Routine questions, careful answers, the dance of procedure. But beneath the surface, a rhythm began to change. Patel's voice faltered on small details, internal dates, subcontractor names, budget crossovers between fiscal years. Crockett's pen moved only twice. She didn't need notes. She was watching patterns. Every slight contradiction was a marker, every, to my knowledge, a thread waiting to be pulled. When the chairman finally yielded time to her again, she looked down at her binder, then straight into Patel's eyes. "Mr. Patel," she said, "before we proceed, Are you aware that this hearing is being recorded and transmitted live under the Transparency in Federal Oversight Act of 2016? He nodded with the faintest smile. Yes, of course. The smile would not last. Crockett turned the page. One paper, one question, and the air in the room seemed to thicken. Somewhere near the back, a pen clicked twice, nervous, echoing against the marble floor. The lie had not yet surfaced, but the silence before it did was already beginning to hum. But the silence wasn't over yet. The second round began at 10:07 a.m. Routine on the surface, surgical underneath. The camera lens tightened its frame, isolating Patel'S face under the hard, unflattering light of congressional truth. Behind him, aides shuffled papers, the faint whisper of policy and panic blending into one indistinct hum. Representative Jasmine Crockett adjusted her earpiece slightly. The chairman recognized her again, his voice echoing through the microphone. The gentlewoman from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That was all it would take to bend certainty into doubt. Crockett began without preamble. Mr. Patel, earlier you testified that Cintra Systems fully complied with federal disclosure requirements under the Federal Procurement Integrity Act. Is that correct? Patel nodded. Yes, Representative. Our compliance officers review every clause before execution. Her tone remained neutral. Then let's review the record. According to the Department of Homeland Security's audit, dated February 12, 2025, your firm billed $94.7 million for AI data fusion infrastructure, coded under line item 11B32. Can you confirm this figure? He glanced to his right, searching the memory of a briefing he had skimmed too quickly. That sounds approximately correct. Approximately. Crockett echoed, her voice soft but unrelenting. Mr. Patel, federal appropriations aren't approximate. Under Title 31 U.S. Code Section 1341, every disbursement is exact to the dollar. Were funds from this contract diverted to any project outside of the approved Aegis View initiative? A flicker. His throat moved before words did. Not to my knowledge. A subtle rustle swept through the gallery, reporters catching the pattern again. That same hedging phrase. Not to my knowledge. Crockett lowered her gaze to her notes, pretending to read while watching him from beneath her lashes. All right, she said, turning a page. Then perhaps you can clarify why your internal email, dated January 4th, lists a $2.3 million transfer to Project Helix, a division registered to your subsidiary in Mumbai. The sound in the room changed. Cameras zoomed. Counsel shifted uneasily behind Patel, lips parting, then closing again. Patel swallowed. That, Representative, that transfer was a data security investment. Cloud redundancy, offshore backup protocols, standard practice. She raised a brow. Under U.S. federal law, FISA Section 702B prohibits the offshoring of government surveillance data, even for redundancy. So, I'll ask again, did you, or did you not, authorize the transfer of federal data to a foreign server? His fingers tapped the table once, twice. The data in question was anonymized metadata, non-identifiable, exempt from classification. Exempt under whose review? Under our compliance officer's review. And who appointed that compliance officer? A pause. I did. Crockett let the silence expand, the hum of the fluorescent lights amplifying it. A pen rolled off someone's desk, clattering loudly in the stillness. Patel's counsel leaned forward, whispering something inaudible. Mr. Patel, Crockett said slowly, you understand that under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, knowingly making false statement to Congress is a felony offense. Yes, Representative, he said quickly. Then please clarify for the record, did your company receive any classified or sensitive data streams from the Department of Defense outside the Aegis View parameters? He hesitated again, breathing through his nose. We received test feeds, but those were for calibration only. She wrote nothing. Instead, she leaned back, eyes unwavering. Calibration, she repeated. A convenient term for unmonitored access. A murmur spread through the journalists. Patel's lawyer uncrossed and recrossed his legs, the nervous choreography of damage control. Crockett folded her hands neatly on the desk. Mr. Patel, you mentioned test feeds. Were those feeds part of the same dataset used to train your predictive model? He blinked. They may have been, yes, but anonymized. She nodded once. So the model currently predicting threat behavior for U.S. agencies was trained, at least in part, on unclassified, foreign-hosted datasets without documented review. His silence was the answer. A thin smile curved at the corner of her mouth. Not triumph, but recognition. She had found the fracture. The chairman's gavel struck once, signaling the end of her time. The gentlewoman's time has expired. Crockett closed her binder with deliberate care. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. But as she gathered her papers, she glanced at Patel one last time, wordless, assessing. She knew there was more beneath the surface. A memo, perhaps. A trail not yet named. And she would find it. But the paper trail wasn't done speaking yet. By 11:14 a.m., the hearing room had changed. The early civility had given way to a kind of tense stillness, the kind that only exists when everyone knows a secret is about to surface. The air conditioning hummed faintly over the low murmur of aides conferring in the back rows. Cameras adjusted their angles. Sound technicians leaned closer to their boards. Every sound felt recorded twice, once by the microphones and once by history. Representative Jasmine Crockett re-entered the room after a brief recess, a new folder in hand. The binder was slimmer this time, unmarked except for a single yellow post-it with 3 words written in block ink. Internal distribution only. She Saturday adjusted her microphone. The chairman recognized her again. Mr. Patel, she began, voice steady. Before the recess, you stated under oath that your company did not transfer classified or sensitive data outside of authorized Aegis View channels. Is that still your testimony? Patel nodded, his face composed but drained of color. Yes, Representative. Then perhaps you can help me understand this. She opened the folder and drew out a printed email chain. The header read, Centratech Internal, Level 7 Authorization Required. Across the top margin, a bold subject line, Helix Mirror Protocol Implementation. The room stilled. Crockett read aloud. Quote, Ensure mirror servers remain operational beyond DHS oversight period. Do not flag within FISA reports, classified as algorithmic redundancy, not data duplication. End quote. This email, Mr. Patel, was authored by your Vice President of Systems Architecture on December 18th of last year. Patel inhaled slowly. His counsel straightened in his chair, but said nothing. Crockett continued, voice lower now. Mr. Patel, under Section 702A of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, any replication or offshoring of U.S. surveillance data must be reported to the FISA court and logged in quarterly oversight records. Were you aware of this protocol? Yes, Representative, he said quietly. And yet this memo suggests you instructed your team to circumvent it by classifying raw data as algorithmic redundancy. Was that instruction issued with your knowledge? He hesitated. That phrasing, circumvent, misrepresents the intent. We sought efficiency, not concealment. Her gaze sharpened. Efficiency does not erase law, Mr. Patel. Intent doesn't excuse execution. The memo indicates deliberate reclassification to avoid federal audit. She slid another page across the table. This, page 2, references budget authorization from your own digital signature. Line item, $4. $2 million, coded as project continuity. Can you confirm this expenditure? His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the page. Yes, that's correct. And that project continuity fund, it wasn't part of the 2023 Appropriations Act allocation, was it? Silence. Under the law, silence in a congressional hearing is louder than denial. Crockett let it hang before pressing further. Mr. Patel, as CEO of a federal contractor, you are bound under Title 18 U.S. Code Section 641, prohibiting the conversion of public funds for unauthorized use. Did you or your subordinates authorize expenditures outside the scope of the Appropriations Act? Patel'S lawyer leaned forward. Madam Representative, I must remind the committee that my client reserves his right against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment. Crockett didn't look at him. Is that your position, Mr. Patel? Patel's voice was barely audible. For this question, yes. The journalists at the back erupted in faint, rapid keystrokes, live tweets flying into the ether before the echo of his words even settled. Patel invokes Fifth. Internal memo surfaces. Oversight chaos. The chairman's gavel struck twice. Order. The witness will answer only within his legal rights. Crockett leaned back, calm, but the fire behind her composure flickered brighter. Very well. The committee will enter this memo into the record as Exhibit 14B. I request immediate review by the Department of Justice's Office of Legal Counsel. She closed the folders softly. One final question, Mr. Patel. Were you aware that this hearing, every second of it, is monitored live, without interruption, under subsection 3(c) of the Transparency and Federal Oversight Act? Patel exhaled, shoulders dropping. Yes, Representative. I'm aware. The lie came wrapped in calm. But even calm has a sound. The microphones caught the whisper of his throat tightening, the small, unplanned pause. Crockett glanced at the clock. 11:27 a.m. She knew the collapse would come soon. And when it came, the cameras would still be rolling. The clock on the mahogany-paneled wall read 11:42 a.m. The room was heavy with anticipation, though no one admitted it aloud. Every journalist's pen hovered. Every cameraman held breath behind lenses that had captured decades of scandal and procedural ritual, yet never a moment quite like this. Representative Jasmine Crockett approached the table, her blue binder now closed, resting neatly at the edge of the polished wood. She looked at Patel with measured calm. There was no malice, no triumph, only the deliberate precision of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Mr. Patel, she began, voice low but carrying, we've reviewed your testimony, your emails, and your internal memos. Let's be clear. This committee is under the Transparency and Federal Oversight Act, subsection 3(c). Every word spoken here is recorded and broadcast live. You understand that, correct? Yes, Representative, Patel replied. But this time, there was a flicker, a twitch at the corner of his eye, a tremor in his hand that he attempted to mask by adjusting his cufflink. Crockett waited. She had no need to rush. Then, with a calm almost surgical in its execution, she asked the question that would unravel everything. Mr. Patel, what did you mean when you instructed your VP to keep the mirror servers operational beyond DHS oversight? Patel, thinking the room's cameras had been temporarily cut for a technical recess, leaned slightly forward. His voice dropped. Well, that was internal. We weren't trying to hide anything, just operational security. No harm and redundancy, you know. The cameras were, and then it happened. 4 to 7 seconds. 4 to 7 seconds of catastrophic self-incrimination. He realized too late that the feed had never stopped. The phrase "the cameras were off" echoed through the room. A confession captured in crystalline clarity, broadcast in real time. Crockett's pen remained poised, never moving. Her face betrayed nothing. Behind her, Senator's eyes widened, and the chairman coughed softly, attempting decorum. But decorum had already fractured. The room was a theater of legal consequence. Every microphone, every lens, every digital recorder caught the infraction. Patel's misstep was not just procedural, it was constitutional. By knowingly directing staff to maintain unmonitored, foreign-hosted servers containing federal surveillance data, he had violated FISA Section 702(b), the Federal Procurement Integrity Act, 41 U.S.C. Section 2101, and 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, false statements to Congress. The collapse was complete. Crockett, still calm, leaned in slightly. So, Mr. Patel, to be clear for the record, these servers were beyond oversight, and you instructed your team accordingly. His hand shook. Yes. No. I didn't mean. It didn't matter. The room, the nation, and the law had already passed judgment. Cameras caught every micro-expression, the tight-turned jaw, the darting eyes, the swallowing of words that had no legal cover. 4 to 7 seconds had exposed everything: intentional circumvention, misappropriation of funds, and willful misrepresentation. Behind the camera glass, a reporter whispered, "This is one of the worst I've ever seen. Complete implosion." The chairman cleared his throat. "Let the record reflect the witness has acknowledged potential violation of federal law and appropriations oversight." Patel slumped in his chair. Counsel whispered urgently, but the words were lost to history. His empire of misdirection had crumbled in less than a minute. The room was silent, everyone fully aware that the collapse was both visual and legal, irreversible in its clarity. Crockett finally closed her eyes briefly, exhaling. 4 to 7 seconds had ended an era of assumed impunity. And yet, the nation was only beginning to watch the fallout. By noon, Washington was no longer just a city of marble halls and polished mahogany. It had become a live theater of consequence. Screens across the nation replayed Patel'S 4 to 7 second confession. Every inflection, every hesitation, every catastrophic misjudgment captured and magnified. News anchors, usually calibrated for neutrality, spoke with rare intensity. Constitutional scholars are calling it the most devastating Senate takedown since Watergate, one anchor reported, voice tied over the teleprompter. For 4 to 7 seconds, America watched competence collapse in real time. Cable networks broke into continuous coverage. Panels of legal experts debated minutiae. Did Patel knowingly violate FISA 702? B. Could the DOJ pursue 18 U.S.C. Section 1001 charges for false statements to Congress? Was the Federal Procurement Integrity Act sufficient to hold a corporate executive accountable for circumvention of federal audit protocols? On Capitol Hill, senators whispered behind closed doors, referencing internal memos and oversight reports that now carried new weight. Committee aides hurriedly uploaded the Helix Mirror Protocol memo to secure servers, worried that outside actors might attempt unauthorized access. Security protocols were tightened overnight. The FBI quietly moved to interview department heads at Centratech. Patel himself became a ghost in the system. By 1:15 p.m., his office was emptied, cleared under the supervision of Centratech legal counsel and federal investigators. Public statements from the company were carefully worded, emphasizing internal review and commitment to compliance. But the moral damage was irreversible. Tweets and commentary flooded social media. Patel thought the cameras were off. One post read, already becoming a trending hashtag. Another noted, for 47 seconds, every lie he built unraveled live. No edits, no redactions. Analysts dissected the video frame by frame, noting micro-expressions, the hand tremor, the blink of panic, the tight jaw. It was a forensic breakdown broadcast as theater. Meanwhile, Representative Crockett returned to her office, phone muted, blinds drawn. She didn't celebrate. She never did. A cup of coffee cooled untouched on her desk. She opened a new file, reviewing the federal statutes and internal memos, ensuring every record was complete for potential DOJ inquiry. The weight of legal and moral responsibility was not lost on her. 4 to 7 seconds had not only exposed Patel, it had highlighted systemic weaknesses in federal oversight. By evening, multiple federal agencies had issued statements. The DOJ confirmed a preliminary inquiry. The Office of Legal Counsel was tasked with reviewing every contract Patel'S company had executed in the past 3 fiscal years. Congressional offices prepared letters demanding full disclosure of internal compliance reviews. In the media, former prosecutors analyzed the clip repeatedly. "This is textbook evidence," one said on air. "It's not just the words, it's the acknowledgement of action. Intent is evident. There's a clear violation of FISA 702 and misrepresentation under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001. A case could be built entirely from this footage." Across social media and newsrooms, the same word kept appearing: implosion. Not only the implosion of Patel'S credibility, but the implosion of assumed corporate impunity under federal oversight. For 4 to 7 seconds, a nation collectively witnessed legal precision meet human error, and the consequences rippled immediately through Washington's political and administrative veins. At the hearing room, the microphones were silent. The chairs were empty, yet the echoes of that collapse lingered. Every observer, from journalist to senator, understood that this event would not fade quietly into the archives. And while Patel'S empire teetered, the law itself stood unshaken, waiting to measure the next steps. The following morning, Washington awoke to a transformed reality. Cintrotech's stock had plummeted nearly 18% overnight. Committee offices were crowded with aides drafting letters, memos, and subpoenas. Headlines read, "Patel implodes in live hearing. DOJ investigates, 4 to 7 seconds that shook Capitol Hill. Crockett holds the line." But amid the chaos, Representative Jasmine Crockett moved quietly, deliberately, an observer and architect of accountability, not a celebrant. Patel had resigned from his post, the official statement citing personal reasons and the desire to cooperate with federal inquiries. Yet insiders knew the resignation was a forced concession, the inevitable consequence of a career built on misdirection unraveling under national scrutiny. Legal counsel whispered about potential charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, FISA Section 702(b), and the Federal Procurement Integrity Act. Internal DOJ memos already circulated, marking Patel'S actions as a textbook case of corporate misconduct and breach of constitutional oversight. News networks dissected every frame of the 4 to 7 second collapse, analysts debating intent, premeditation, and negligence. Former senators remarked that they had never seen such a complete, live exposé of corporate legal failure. Across the country, law schools used the clip as a case study, how precise questioning, knowledge of statutes, and calm composure could compel truth, even from a prepared, powerful witness. In her office, Crockett reviewed the exhibits one final time. The internal memos, the emails, the annotated budgets, all now entered into the congressional record. She leaned back in her chair, hands folded. Outside, the city moved, unaware of the invisible corrections she and the committee had enforced. Yet within the quiet, she reflected on what had transpired. 4 to 7 seconds had dismantled not just Patel'S authority, but a culture of assumed impunity. The committee released its report later that afternoon. Key findings: unauthorized replication of federal data on foreign servers, misrepresentation of internal operations, improper allocation of appropriated funds, and violation of both statutory and constitutional oversight mechanisms. Legal scholars immediately hailed it as one of the clearest demonstrations of legislative and constitutional enforcement in recent memory. Still, Crockett knew the moral lesson went beyond statutes and budgets. This was about trust, oversight, and the capacity of institutions to remain vigilant. 4 to 7 seconds had revealed not just Patel'S duplicity, but the delicate balance between technological innovation, corporate influence, and constitutional accountability. As evening fell, she walked the marble hallways of the Capitol, the golden glow of sunset reflecting off the polished floors. Cameras long turned off, microphones stored, yet the weight of responsibility lingered. Every step echoed the reminder that power, unchecked, could become invisible, and only vigilance and adherence to law could illuminate it. Finally, she returned to her desk, placed the last memo in a secured file, and sat in silence. Across the nation, commentators debated, analysts explained, and historians would someday write chapters on the hearing. But in that quiet office, Crockett allowed herself one thought. Justice had not been loud. It had been precise, methodical, and unwavering. 4 to 7 seconds had ended Patel'S lie. Yet for Crockett, and for the law itself, the record would always reflect the truth. Some careers end in scandal. His ended in silence. Washington doesn't punish ignorance. It replaces it.